introducing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's me. Hey, hello, everybody.
Well, let's try
Hey,
that again.
hello.
I just hit puberty. Sorry. Hi there. Welcome back. It's been a while, guys. Welcome back to the TheFreeRotation podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, Chris.
Hola.
And our resident executive producer / overlord and co-host and everything else, Angie.
Bonjour.
And then we have our audio tech person, Casey, in the background. How's it going? She like runs it now. Like she's just sitting in the background hitting things. Whatever.
Hitting that ass.
I'm a real boy.
That's spicy. Anyways, so today we're talking about the best TV show right now on Netflix. You don't have to argue with me, but you haven't finished it, so you don't get to say anything. It's Arcane. And I wanted to talk about it because it is, I mean, it's sort of the thing that we've all, or not all of us, me and Angie have been really relegated into like the League of Legends cultures for years up until like Valorant came out. When Arcane came out, it was sort of that idea that anything video game adaptation related was probably going to suck. And it turned out not to suck at all. I really wanted to talk about it because I finished the show. I think Angie's finished it. Chris has not finished it, I assume.
Nope. I've watched the first 2 episodes, and it's actually really good. I was surprised.
So, is this going to be a spoiler-heavy episode?
It's fun.
Okay. So,
I'm not going to remember.
Okay. He's going to be like, anyways. So, if you hadn't heard, Arcane is the new TV show that actually Riot Games released. It's actually been in production the last 6 years. It was actually surprisingly announced 2 years ago, about the time Valorant was announced. So, it's been about 2 years still in production, and it came out about 3 weeks ago. It was released in 3-episode, 3-act parts. So the first 3 episodes were like Act 1, and then it was Act 2 with the next 3, and then Act 3 was the last 3 episodes. And initially, the way it was described is it was going to be sort of the story of Jinx and Vi, who are 2 of the well-known League of Legends champions in the game. I was surprisingly shocked to see how many people were actually in it that were related to League and how well they did the story in general. Really what the story ends up being about is about the area in Runeterra called Zaun and Piltover. Zaun is sort of this undercity that is connected to Piltover, which is called the City of Progress. Piltover is sort of your elite, I guess like the Final Fantasy game where the city in the sky, what is that? Do you remember what I'm talking about? Like that's like the utopian city that people want to live in. Meanwhile, Zaun is sort of the undercity, and it's sort of the conflict between the 2 cities along with the internal conflicts between the people of each city. So you initially meet with Jinx and Vi, who are not Jinx and Vi. Her name is Powder at the time of the beginning of the show. Powder and her sister Vi.
Well, and one of the things to comment on between Piltover and Zaun is Piltover is known for its inventions. It's where all the inventors live, people who use science and technology to improve people's existence. However, in Zaun, they don't have the resources for the tech, so they end up experimenting on themselves.
Right. And Zaun also is sort of a mining city, so with its people. So they call the people the undercity. Yeah. They're the poor. They're your impoverished people.
But like the area is covered in like green smog. It smells terrible down there. It's awful.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't play video games and have not seen the show, imagine Judge Dredd.
Yeah, that's a good example.
It's the Judge Dredd underverse versus the underground people versus the above ground elites.
Right. And it's if you watch the show, there's really a bridge that connects the 2 cities, and it's sort of, to me, metaphorical about what these 2 cities should do. They should be working together toward a goal all together, but people...
Or think Hunger Games.
Yeah, kind of like Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Or Aram. I thought they should have done an Aram bridge just for that one thing for the Arcane thing, but it was funny. But so really initially you think that you're going to be hearing the story about Powder and Vi and their life in the Undercity. Really what it's about, they sort of spark this entire saga involving what's called Hex Tech, which in League of Legends, Hex Tech is sort of a basis of an augment that you can get as part of the game.
Yeah, people who can't cast magic can use Hex Tech to be able to cast Arcana.
Right. So basically, Hex Tech is actually magic. It's harnessing the power of magic for science. Yeah. Going into it is that it gets stolen from Piltover, ends up in Zaun, and it's sort of a core story about how people trying to use magic to harness their powers and to progress the powers of each city. Zaun itself, which is the Undercity, wants to be an independent nation. It doesn't want anything to do with Piltover. Meanwhile, Piltover is sort of, I guess, manipulating the people of Zon and using them. But at the same time, they want to use hex tech to progress their city into like an international city, like sort of a port city for every other city that's in Runeterra. And you have to understand, if you think of Runeterra is like this vast world. So people of Noxus aren't anywhere near the people of Piltover, but by having these portals, they're able to sort of relegate trade and all of that stuff. So it sounds really super lame, but it's really at the core of this is it's talking about the internal conflict of each of these people. There are people in Zon who want nothing to do with becoming an independent nation. They just want to go about their lives trying to live the best. Meanwhile, there's an uprising in Zon trying to get Piltover to give them their freedom. And so what they're doing is trying to take hex tech and use it against the people of Piltover as well, while mutating other people that live within Zon. So it's a long, overdrawn story, but really what makes the story so good is that each character, to me, actually has a really good story and a driven purpose. Yeah, so I initially was really surprised because I figured you're going to do a story like everybody's seen like Final Fantasy or Warcraft or anything like that. Most of those kind of flop because you're already engaged in a story that's been going on, and it's hard for a lot of newer people to understand what's going on. But I think what Arcane did the best is that it made it a point in which people can get into it without knowing anything about League of Legends.
First of all, Final Fantasy Advent Children was amazing.
I mean, there's been like 8,000 Final Fantasy different things. I get it, but I didn't know anything about Final Fantasy. So it's like, okay, I kind of don't get what's going on. But I think that's what Arcane does better, is that it gives each agent, I'm so used to playing Valorant, champion an origin story and introducing newer characters.
Right, you don't have to have played the game to understand anything.
No.
And as someone who has not played the game or care to, it's actually a good show.
Yeah. Kind of going through the acts. Act 1 is sort of the origin story for I keep wanting to say Jinx, but it's Powder and Vi. Their parents initially are killed in what is supposed to be an uprising of Zon against Piltover. The Enforcers, who are just jackasses right now, do like the Enforcers later.
The Enforcers are the cops.
Yeah, they're the cops. They get a lot better. I can assure you they get a lot better, and probably we'll see that later in the
I don't know,
season.
that old lady Enforcer seems okay.
Yeah, the old lady Enforcer's pretty badass.
Don't ruin it. I saw that look on your face.
She's awesome.
She seems alright.
She was a good guy.
Yeah.
She seems alright.
A good guy.
Yeah. Oh no. But it's sort of so initially what ends up happening is Powder and Vi find a hex tech that's being worked on by Jace, who is a student at the university trying to harness the power of magic.
Well, they don't find it. They steal it.
They steal it.
Well, they find it, but they steal it, but I don't think that's what they were really going for.
They found it in his house while they were robbing him.
Yeah.
Found is a loose term.
I mean, have you not accidentally just jumped into somebody, walked into somebody's house and been like, oh, not my house.
Found all your money and jewels.
Yeah, they break into the house to steal food, money, jewels, anything they can sell to
just live.
To live.
Yeah.
And I would like to point out that it is Powder who finds the hex tech energy balls.
And at the time in which they're created, they're literally just very unstable prototypes trying to harness magic. Jace, who is the creator of hex tech, his family was actually saved by this mage. I think it was Rise, just to be honest with you. Has been obsessed with the idea of harnessing the power of magic through science. And that's the whole thing with Piltover. In League of Legends, you have actual mages who do use magic. But in Piltover, it's anything Piltover related is related to hex tech in-game and out-of-game. So it sort of starts telling the story about how these enforcers are trying to find them to get back this hex tech.
Well, and it's magic has been banned and outlawed. So Jace actually gets in a lot of trouble because cities have been destroyed by mage wars. One mage could take down an entire civilization. So anyone who uses Arcane is very taboo. And
again, Arcane is the magic, and if you haven't watched, when we say he's trying to harness it, it's basically these little glowing blue gems that are basically like nitroglycerin. So if you just kind of roll them around, you blow a hole in shit because they're unstable.
Right. And if you know any of the other characters like Heimerdinger, who's a Yordle in the story,
is he the little cat guy?
Yeah.
I like that guy.
Raise your dongers.
He's adorable.
Yeah.
Listen.
I want to give him scritches.
The donger. Nobody messes with the donger. I'm just saying.
I say that all the time. But I want to give that little cat scritches.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And he's also very old, so he remembers when mages broke the world.
Yeah. He understands. It's sad because everybody's like, well, he's an old fuddy-duddy. He doesn't understand.
It does come off that way
Yeah.
in the beginning.
like he only wants to keep the world the way it is, but it's because a Yordle can live hundreds of years.
He's like 300 in the show.
I think he's 300. I mean,
he founded Piltover.
Yeah, exactly. Yordles are known to be very knowledgeable about the world and basically the history and lore behind the world itself.
Also saw a Yordle in the underground world.
Oh, yeah.
She looked like she had been chain smoking for 48 years
Yeah.
and drinking heavily. I was like, huh, aggressive.
Yeah.
The prostitute.
Yeah, the prostitute was pretty funny.
I
was like,
appreciated her.
I was like, Yordles are supposed to be so rare that you rarely see them, but there's two, one in Piltover and one in Zon. You know that like Heimerdinger was like hitting her up like, hey, buddy.
Also like the giant drag prostitute.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Aggressive.
I like how they sort of showed Zon, because if you ever play Zon, or if you ever play any of the characters in League, Zon just looks so like ragged and just disgusting.
Well, because they experiment on themselves,
right?
With smog technology,
and it looks like the world in like Total Recall.
Yeah,
where like everybody has like their cybernetic like implants that they're doing like at their house,
right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's all like half-ass, like Escape from LA. When they go to the surgeon's lab, and it's just like a bunch of people that have a bunch of augments.
Yeah,
but it's all like off of shit they can find.
Yeah.
It's not like real doctors.
And half of it's necrotizing off your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Citadel in Rick and Morty, Morty Town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like making their own like.
That's what's scary is like you get to the point in your life where you're just trying to be more, so you have to experiment on yourself. Use it, and they use what's called shimmer, and it's sort of this weird substance that can augment you. It's like steroids almost, but they make you like creatures and monsters. It's really
is that
creepy.
what that weird one-eyed man gave to that rat? That
yes,
fucked
shimmer.
up that cat.
So
best thing ever.
Yeah.
So the thing with like Zon and
the cat was like, mistakes have been made.
Oh dear.
I was about to say that was one of the. In all the things that made me sad, that was one of the things that made me the saddest. I was like, oh, that poor cat didn't deserve that.
Rats gotta eat too.
Oh, it didn't deserve it.
Weird way to say it, but yeah.
I mean, he put the cat in there to kill the rat.
Yeah.
Things went awry.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's important about the first act, it really just does set up what ends up happening and what these characters become down the line. Kind of getting into episode 3. Episode 3 was pretty much considered the pinnacle of the series itself. It also is what turns Powder into Jinx, going into spoiler territory. So if you haven't watched it and want to watch it, don't listen.
I have no idea. Okay, so as someone who has played the game a time or two, I have no basis for any kind of knowledge on the show or the game. So I did not know that Powder was going to be.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot.
You're welcome. But here comes the spoilers. So at the end of the 3rd episode, what ends up happening is their father figure of Vi and Powder is Vander. He's sort of the one kind of being the gatekeeper to keep Zon at least somewhat neutral to good. He doesn't want his people to suffer. He doesn't want people to hurt each other. He doesn't really believe in the violence of what a lot of people in Zon believe. Like, hey, we need to go riot and go beat the shit out of Piltover.
The problem is they won't. They'll get murdered.
Right.
And he sees that. Like, if we want to survive, we have to be peaceful.
Because he was there when the first one, he led the first one, and it went horribly.
Yeah.
Vi's over there just like,
yeah, let's uprise and like have our independence. But Vander is smart enough to know that whatever we do, we are not powerful enough to beat Piltover.
right.
Silco, who is sort of the antagonist of the series, but I almost want to say he's an antagonist, but a morally gray antagonist. He's sort of the guy who you want to hate initially, but then as the story kind of progresses and like he does some serious shit, he is sort of like a father figure to Jinx down the line.
Which one's Silco?
Silco's the red-eyed guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that was that he felt that he had been betrayed. So at the end of during the 3rd episode, what ends up happening is Vander gets kidnapped by Silco. He's like over Vander shit. Vi and her friends, who you're sort of introduced to, and you're kind of like, who are these as the champions? Who are these going to be new champions in the game? They're not. They go to kind of do a rescue mission. In the circumstance of what happens, Vi is very protective of Powder. Powder is sort of known as kind of a clumsy, kind of has a lot of...
She's known as a Jinx.
She's known as a Jinx. So things that they try to do, like missions and stuff like that.
By missions, I mean rob.
Yeah. Well, is it robbing if you're just like redistributing the wealth? Robin Hood, I guess.
Yes.
Robin Hood.
Robin is in his name.
Yeah,
He was
you're
robbing
right.
people.
You're right. Whatever. But what ends up happening is they try to rescue Vander, and it doesn't go well. It does go well, and they're nearly about to escape. And Powder, who had found the hex core, uses it to try and help rescue Vander, quote unquote. What ends up happening is several people end up dying based on Powder's jinxiness. And so Vi and Powder sort of come at odds with that. Vi, for the first time in the entire series, calls her a jinx.
Well, not only does she call her a jinx, she leaves her.
Yeah.
She leaves her in the middle of the road by their dead father's body, where Silco finds her.
Right. And there's a lot of debate about whether...
While Powder screams and cries for Jinx not to leave her. Okay, I'm just putting it out there.
There's a lot of debate about whether Vi, was she really intending to leave? She got mad, slapped Powder, and was like, you are a Jinx.
But from Powder's perspective, she left her.
I know.
She didn't know she was right around the corner.
Right.
Crying.
And the enforcer, or the sheriff of Piltover, ends up kidnapping Vi and sticking her in Stillwater's prison. Meanwhile, Silco shows up and is basically like, I will take care of you. You don't need her. She doesn't care about you. Nobody cares about you. I'm the only one who cares about you.
Well, and he's projecting because Vander had tried to kill him.
Yes.
They were brothers, and he had turned on him and tried to kill him because he too had been abandoned by his brother. Just like she had been abandoned by her sister. The sibling ends up hating what they become.
Yeah.
So they're rejected. So it's important to know that he sees himself in her.
Right.
And for the first time, he's found somebody else that he can love.
Right. So really the next 6 episodes are a culmination of what ends up happening, I think, 10 years after the first 3 episodes.
6 years, I think.
Yeah, it's either 6 to 10 years.
Remember, Vi's got sick on her cheek.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true. And she ends up in Stillwater prison sort of as a captive by Marcus, who's the sheriff of Piltover. Jinx becomes Jinx and is sort of a terrorist at this point. Silco is pushing for Zon to be a nation of independence and is trying real hard to take down Piltover. Meanwhile, you've been introduced to Baby Echo. I call it Baby Echo in the original part of the series. You're learning about Jace and his ability to sort of harness the power of the hex core, and he does. So by the next set of episodes, him and Victor, my homie Victor, I love Victor, have learned how to use the power of hex core to sort of progress the city of Piltover. And so the next 6 episodes sort of span. The story itself is a lot of it is talking about the internal conflict between the people of each city. So Piltover, like Heimerdinger, they don't want to use the hex core for weapon. They don't want to weaponize it. They don't want to do any of that. When it becomes weaponized, there's a huge debate about whether weaponizing hex core is a good idea versus, banning it at that point. Heimer's right. That you can't use that kind of power and don't expect somebody to try and weaponize it. Noxus being a good example of somebody who would weaponize hex core. They're sort of
and they did show up specifically to weaponize.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Zon is sort of in an internal conflict because once Vi realizes that Jinx has been raised to be basically a terrorist. It's sort of her story in order to get her sister back. To me, the stories of the people are so wrapped around each other and so well done. It's shocking, to just see how characters that are literally in a video game actually sort of have motivations and have a good origin story and why they do certain things. So, for example, Caitlin is an enforcer. Her family is one of the council members, so she's a high-ranking family member in Piltover. But she doesn't see, she sort of goes on this investigation as to what's going on with Zon and the hex core. And she sees why Zon is the way it is. She's very much different than a lot of the enforcers. She and Vi sort of team up in order to find Jinx because Jinx is using the hex core to sort of power her machines and all of that. It's a very intricate story. And it's one of those things that you can kind of do an entire 4 hours just talking about what happens. But essentially, you learn that these characters... I don't know. It's just every character, while you want to see sort of a good ending, there's really no good ending in the first season to what happens.
Right. I would like to talk about Jinx's character arc because of all the characters in the series, I feel like she had the biggest story to be told, but you couldn't listen to the dialogue. You had to feel it.
Yeah. Because they really did a good job about, it's a mental health issue. They're sort of addressing her PTSD. They're addressing sort of her... I think her sort of snap from what happens in the 3rd episode and how she sort of becomes who she is, because it's a very sympathetic character.
Even before the 3rd episode, she was a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because she saw her parents get killed, and it alludes to that in the fact that she's watching while Vi is on the ground, curled up. Jinx sees what happens to her parents. She watched it all, and then it says there's one where the people have called her Jinx, like their friends, their brothers, because Vander's taking in all these orphans. And Vi goes out and tells Jinx, or tells Powder, we're gonna leave you here. You're not ready for this mission yet, because it's extremely dangerous. And Powder is young at this point. She's very young. She's like 10.
Yeah, she's 10.
And Powder flips her shit in her room. She starts hitting herself in the head, throwing her stuff around, and just really like losing her stuff. Then that's when she decides to go out and help. But she's in her room, like you can see, like she's already crazy.
Yeah, she's snapping.
Well, she already has these mental issues. When Vi leaves her, when Silco takes her, he does become a father figure to her, and he accepts her for who she is. He actually nurtures her craziness. But as she gets older, he tries to show her that, you're going about this all wrong. I need you to like tone it in. But he gives her a laboratory in her own space to be herself, to be her genius.
Yeah. I think it's also one of the saddest parts of the show, too, is when Vi and Silco are sitting there at that table, and Jinx is like, I can either be Powder or I can be Jinx. And Vi is basically like, you're always going to be Powder to me. She kind of like relegates Jinx to being like this evil thing. But at the end of it, Silco's like, I loved you regardless of who you were. It didn't matter if you were Powder or Jinx. I was going to love you regardless. You were like a child to me. And I think it's sort of, I don't know. It's such a sad thing to see, because what she is going through isn't really, I hate to say part of it is her fault, but not really her fault. She was a kid, and she's never going to grow up out of that immaturity, especially watching all of her friends sort of die in this horrific accident that she didn't mean to cause, but it did happen. But she was 10. You're raised in this horrible environment watching your parents die. You don't know any better.
Yeah, so she, it's like everything she does, it actually does go wrong. Their first heist where they're on a ship in the harbor and they're trying to smuggle some stuff in, it goes wrong because she loses her shit. She ruins it. Everybody knows she's genuinely a Jinx. But I think what happens at the end, and what stuck with me the most, is she gets really hurt on the bridge in a fight with Echo. She deliberately sets off a grenade that she knows is going to kill her and Echo, but I think she'd resigned herself to the fact that she was better off dead. Silco finds her and he saves her. He takes her to an underground doctor who turns her into a creation. So now, not only is she Powder, Jinx, but she could be this other thing.
Yeah.
And she ends up kidnapping everyone. She realizes that Vi is falling in love with Caitlyn, and now her affections are split. She's not going to have Vi. She thinks Silco is turning on her and going to turn her in because she overhears him talking to himself, and he says daughters are nothing but trouble. So her whole life she's just been a problem that people have set aside or tried to, let's just keep her involved and keep her out of the way. So she sits them all down at the dinner table, and like Becky said, there's 2 chairs. There's Powder and there's Jinx. And I think even in her own mind, she doesn't truly understand what either of these people are because she doesn't know who she is. Well, there's some things that happen, and Silco ends up freeing himself, and he pulls the gun, and he's going to shoot Vi. And she kills Silco before he can kill Vi. And this was a crazy-ass dinner party. Think of the Joker.
Yeah.
And, like, the Killing Joke. This is what this dinner party was.
Yeah, it looks like kind of a Alice in Wonderland gone wrong.
And so when she kills Silco, she goes over to him, and he tells her, I've always loved you like a daughter. I never saw you as anything but perfect, and I would never have given you to Piltover for Zlon's independence, because that's what she thought he was going to do. He's like, I never would have given you to them. And when he dies, she realizes that she's done it again. She's killed her family again.
Yeah.
And that's when she embraces, I think, truly embraces that she's Jinx.
Yeah.
She is just destruction and chaos. And it's crazy because watching it, you realize she really always has been a Jinx. She's always been this destructive chaos. And I don't think she can ever be anything but.
No, and I think part of that is Silco realizes that he sort of created the monster as well, because Silco's whole storyline is that he's trying to regain Zahn's independence from Piltover. But in that, he's using a lot of terroristic acts for that to happen.
Right.
And Jinx being the person who is enacting those terroristic
Right.
things.
So Jace says, I'll give you everything you want. Zaun's independence. You can have everything you want. We just need Jinx. Somebody has to be held accountable for all the people who died on the bridge. She killed a lot of people. And true, I think she thought she would die as well.
Yeah.
But he said the only thing to get everything you've ever dreamed of is we need Jinx. So Silco, he's talking to himself at Xander's memorial.
Yeah.
He's like, I'd have everything I want. And if I gave him Jinx, I would even get rid of all my problems. And that's what she hears. And same thing she did before when she heard Vi agree with the kid, like, oh yeah, she's that. But then she leaves and Vi says, but she's also a genius in this.
Right.
But all she's ever heard is what a trouble she is.
Yeah, she's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And on top of it, like, at that time, that's Silco's realization at the same time. This was not worth it. What I have done I can get everything I want, but at the end of the day, what my family, what I think is important should be number one, and I'm going to lose that in order to gain this, whatever that I think that that we've deserved or whatever.
And that's when you realize he's not really a bad guy.
No. The baddest guy in the entire show is Singed. It's always going to be Singed, and I'm going to call it.
You leave Singed alone.
Singed is the one. Okay, this is my thing. Singed never... Okay, let's look at this. He mutated that little creature. We know what Vander becomes. Think about it. What he becomes, he creates Warwick. So Oriana could have been his daughter. Think of like he only cares about creating something out of what he thinks is weakness, and that's fucking Singed. I hate fucking Singed. I hate playing against Singed, and I hate Singed.
Jinx was already nuts, so bonkers. But I think it goes back to the PTSD untreated in her childhood.
Makes me mad. I don't like Singed.
I think, to me, the most touching moment in the show, and you and I have talked about what we like the most, but when they were kids, Vi had given Jinx a tube. It was like a rocket, and it shot blue flame, and she said, if you need me, use this, and I'll always, always come for you. Well, Jinx doesn't know at first that Vi's been in prison for 6 years and couldn't reach her, couldn't come back for her. So when she hears that Vi is back, she goes on the top of a tower after she's created chaos, of course. Mm-hmm. And she hears Vi's voice in her head. And you know what? We haven't even talked about how great the art was.
Yeah.
How they did such a good job of showing the voices in her head.
It's one of the best animated series. Like, the way it's animated. Like, I've said this before. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, it's just animated with every detail meaning something.
And she stands on top of the highest point she can reach, and she holds up the tube of blue smoke. Vi and Caitlin are escaping the Undercity, but they see the smoke, and of course, you think that Vi is going to leave it. But as the smoke runs out, and Jinx she didn't come. I knew she wouldn't. She turns, and then there's Vi. And in just that moment, she's powder again.
Yeah, she's like, my sister still exists.
But she's still nuts,
She has a serious abandonment issues, to the fact that, even Caitlyn and Vi, the idea that Caitlyn could be Vi's number one is a problem to her. Mm-hmm. And she misinterprets everything about that entire situation. And basically is like, you have to choose either me or Caitlyn.
Right, and Caitlyn wasn't after Jinx. She just needed the Hex Tech back. Because she understood the danger of it.
Yeah. I will say the scene that always, tears me up is the scene with Echo versus Jinx.
Yeah. Their fight on the bridge. Well, and then at the very end, talking about Jinx's self-destruction, lack of self-awareness, crazy pants. Even without them giving Jinx, Heimer and everyone had gone Undercity and seen the way Zaun lived. And Jace, who essentially leads Piltover, is like, no wonder these people are rising up against us. They're impoverished. They have nothing. We use them as slaves, So they're going to give them their freedom and help them, even without getting Jinx. And then Jinx, using the power of Hex Tech, launches
super mega death rocket. She ults,
launches her super mega death rocket directly at Piltover and kills the council.
Well, we don't know.
Yes, we do.
That probably does.
Pretty much only Jace survives.
Echo's the little black kid with white hair, right?
Yeah.
Echo, yeah.
Fuck that kid. He's a narc. Hope he gets what he deserves.
He changes.
He literally is leading the revolution in Zaun at the end at 2 and 3.
The peaceful revolution.
And he that is one of my favorite things about the end of the series is him and Heimerdinger getting together.
I hope Jinx kills him.
No, I don't. As much as I hate Echo, I can tell you this. I hate Echo as a champion. I fucking hate that character. I hate his stupid little time warps. I hate his stupid little, like, I can hit you in the face and then I'm going back 4 feet and I can't keep up with you. But as a character, I think they did a great job. Sort of taking him as, like, yes, he was a narc, but at the same time, realizing that there is another way. He sort of takes over Vander's role in order to help the city.
Because Vander does too.
Silco is like, Silco's gone off the deep end.
If I existed in that time, I would have definitely followed Silco. Maybe not Jinx so much because she's crazy pants.
And that was a lot of people's problems. They liked Silco. They did not like Jinx, but he kept relying on Jinx to do everything.
Right. Like his minions had a big problem that he kept relying on Jinx, but she's his daughter. He wants her to take over after him. And he has a really hard time admitting that she's flawed because she's perfect to him. Because he doesn't see her through, he sees through through his rose-colored eyeballs, so to speak. But she's perfect to him, and he genuinely did love her as his perfect daughter.
I would say
it took a lot for him to realize.
Well, I think each city sort of sees their problems. So Silco sees that what he has basically done is effectively going to lose all of the family that he's ever loved for something that, great independence from Piltover. What does that mean at the end of the day for Zahn? There's still gonna be inner violence between the people. And then I think Victor to me is like my favorite character in the entire series. During the last arc, he basically says to Jace, and it's sort of Piltover's like awakening. In the search for great, we forgot to do good. And that is so, like, to me, that is such a profound thing to think is like, yes, we are moving toward progress. We're trying to become this great city.
Well, because they were doing it for the people. Let's make mining better. Let's build these mining gloves that to punch through rock easily without straining yourself. Let's make these things to help everyday life better for everyone. But what happens is, let's make hex gates first. Let's use this to do this. Let's make weapons. So in their search to be great, they forgot to do good.
And Victor was from the Undercity, so he saw both sides of it. He knew that whatever Piltover does, if it pushes Zahn back, Zahn is never going to work together with Piltover. There's no understanding there. And so I personally think that was probably the most profound thing about the show that really stood out is the fact that in the search for this greatness, the city just forgot to do good for their people. And that's really what it comes down to.
And that's kind of what they remember at the end when they're like, we need to help Zahn. But then
Super Mega Death Rocket?
Jinx being Jinx.
Jinx plus
Jinx
pressed
the entire
R.
piece because now there's going to be no piece. And on top of it, Noxus is coming.
Yeah, and I'll be curious.
And we know who's leading that Noxus army.
So you heard about, so Mel, who was one of the council member, her mother talks about brother being killed by this man, and they don't know what he's going to do. He's out for blood. Oh, we know who that is.
Yeah, and we know who his commander is.
I don't know who the hell we are, but we don't know dick.
So in League of Legends, there's Noxus is your think of a Sparta city-state.
Okay.
I mean, they're like war tyrants, but kind of cool war tyrants.
And Katarina is the adopted daughter of the general, and she's horrific. Like, playing against her, a good Katarina, the
spin to win is coming.
You just quit.
Well, when they were talking about it, I just kept waiting to see, like, people were talking about it being either Swain or Darius that shows up.
Well, it's probably Darius under Swain.
Yeah.
It's going to be Darius and Katarina, I think.
Yeah. So it'll be curious to see, like, if they finally show, because that was when they hinted at the third act who was showing up. A lot of people were like, "It's fucking Swain! Here he comes!" Because they kept showing crows. Like, hello,
and it might have Scion with them, which is the brother.
Yeah.
Who got turned.
Man, bad. Okay, now they're talking about in the second season they're going to introduce Urgot and Camille. Imagine Urgot versus Scion. That would be some tentacle porn versus zombie man. Oh man, just. Getting pumped up. These are the characters I really like.
Isn't Urgot that thing that affects corn? Makes you go crazy?
Yes. And he's crazy. He has metal, like, spider legs. And he shoots guns out.
He's like Doc Ock. From Zahn, so he's all smoggy and pollution. And
I was about to say, if you ever want to see what probably present day Piltover looks like without having to get to the Arcane, like to like season 5 of Arcane or whatever it's going to be, watch the video for League of Legends. It's called Warriors, and in it there's a whole like storyline regarding Vi and Caitlyn as she has become the sheriff, and they're fighting Urgot, and that's probably one of my favorite videos. But I just gotta say, I mean, here's the thing: we've only like touched the surface of like what's happened in the show. There's a lot, like Heimerdinger being voted off the council, Jace becoming a dictator almost.
In his effort to do good.
Yeah, Victor's storyline, which that was probably the saddest storyline to me too, is Victor's whole arc itself. Although, my boy Victor, one of my main champions, I cannot wait till he gets to become what he becomes.
He's the one with the gimp, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He don't got no gimp after a while.
He still walks with that cane.
Yeah, so he has a cane and a limp.
Staff.
Yeah, he still has to use it.
You just have to witness the glorious evolution.
Yeah. That's his line in game. Witness the glorious evolution.
Yeah, he was actually a villain in game, and then you're like, oh, he's not actually a villain. Oh, shit. Damn. But yeah.
He gets taken over by the Hex Core. Because it's exactly what Heimerdinger feared it was.
Oh, and so, okay, so this is like, we're going to be done with this. But on Reddit, if you look at the symbols on the Hex Core, the one that Victor's working on, it's the symbols for each of the lines you use when you're doing your runes in game. So it's precision, resolve, magic, all that stuff. Oh,
that's cool.
So if you look at it and you look at your runes on game, that's literally the same thing.
That's what you're setting?
Yeah, that's what you're setting.
That's cool.
So I was like, damn, that's a lot of intricacy. So yeah. All right. That's good.
Good cartoon.
I can't wait for you to finish it, Chris, because it's decent.
And I don't like anime at all, but this is actually pretty decent. And it's not anime.
No. Yeah. I would say, I said this on my Facebook yesterday. I said, this is the only, like, there's so much more animation can do that live action cannot do. Like, you cannot tell this story unless you want to spend $30 billion.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw Avatar, but I believe they can.
I mean, who's going to play Heimer? Danny DeVito?
Yes.
Have you seen the Avengers? They have a raccoon. I believe they can pull it off.
I mean,
yeah, but you got to think about, like, by the time they got to Guardians of the Galaxy, they had enough bank at that point to really, like, pay for that CGI.
I'm pretty sure League of Legends has the money to pay for it if they want.
I mean, they've been working on the show since, I think, season 4. So it took a while to get there, but I think that...
And now Riot has one more promise left to fulfill. The MMORPG.
And then, they're working on... They've just announced their fighter game, and then the MMO is next. So I'm excited.
Is it like a Street Fighter style fighter?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sign me the fuck
They literally
up.
said they just released it's called Project L, and they've released like the first part of the gameplay, and it's like what they said is it's easy to play.
Precise gunplay?
Yes, precise gunplay. Easy to learn, hard to master. That's what they're going for. So people who are like more dedicated fighters can actually like learn the game better.
But keep in mind, this is from the same people who said Valorant is precision gunplay.
Okay, but to be fair, the guy who tweeted that out was not like, he was like a VP of another part of the department, and even the Valorant people were like, we did not mean that. Please don't take that seriously.
It was literally in the fucking trailer.
It is definitely not precision gunplay. It is run and gun and headshot people while you're not looking at them. It's confusing.
It's jump out of a high space, spin around, and you've mysteriously shot people in the head.
I will say the Valorant subreddit's been funny since Arcane came out. They're like, Valorant animation win, please. We have stories to want to tell, please. Let's go pew pew.
Okay, it took them 11 seasons.
I was about to say, literally season 10. They're on season 12 of League now. This is season 12 coming up. They announced Arcane at their 10-year anniversary. That's the same year they announced Valorant. Now, how long has Valorant been out? Nearly 2 years. And Arcane just came out. So give it another 10 years.
It's like Diablo franchise.
If they don't fix all the problems with Valorant, it will not make it 10 years.
No.
I don't know. League has.
So many people have gone back to Call of Duty because...
Alrighty, well, thanks, guys, for our diatribe into Arcane. Watch it. Go watch it.
I watched a cartoon.
Watch it.
Looked pretty good.
It's real good.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Later.